Well, happy fall, everybody. Today's the first day of autumn, as you may or may not know. And because of that, I want to start off, 'tis the season to be scary. So today, I'm going to share with you a creepy ghost story. This is a true story that actually happened to me. For many of us growing up here in Beaver County, we used to have our favorite fishing spots. Some of you may have grown up at Brady's Run. Some of you have grown up maybe down a river and fished all the time. Me personally, I fished and grew up at Raccoon Creek State Park. And for those of you who are familiar with Raccoon, you know what a beautiful place it is. I used to fish out there a lot as a kid. My parents would take me out there, and one of our routine duties that we would have after leaving the park was we would take a drive out to Service Church Reservoir and go to the John Anderson Cemetery that's out there. That's where this ghost story takes place. One summer afternoon when I was very young, probably 7 or 8 years of age, I don't think I was any younger than that, or any older, I was fishing one afternoon out there with my mother. My father was at work. I can't remember where my brother was. I think he was with aunts of mine or uncles. I can't remember, but he wasn't with us. So it was just me and Mom. And I wasn't doing very well fishing. I wasn't catching anything. I was all over the lake. I was using lures. I was using flies. I even had a can of worms that she bought me. I couldn't catch anything that day. So I was despondent. And I was bored. And I told Mom, I said, let's go home. I said, please. I implored with her and pleaded and said, could we please just, let's just go home and call it a day. I wanted to go out and do stuff with my friends. She's like, okay. So we leave the park and we're driving past the ranger stations, okay? The way from that end of the park, okay? And we go all the way down the highway because I specifically asked her, I said, I want to go and stop at Service Church Reservoir. I said, can we stop at the cemetery? And she said, yeah, we can do that. So we stop, we go down the road, we pull into the gravel driveway there by the church where, the road comes like this, and then the gravel parking lot is here, and the church is here, and the reservoir is on that side. And the cemetery is behind the church, and it's like this. It's a big hillside that's cut out, full of graves. For people that know what I'm talking about and have been out there, I'm not making this up. It's a very steep cemetery. You can't get in from the cemetery driving on the church bottom of it. You have to go to the top. You have to continue up the road, and there's an entrance on the very top of the hill to get to the cemetery, and you drive all the way down to where the church is at, because the road is just too narrow for that cemetery for 2 cars to pass each other. So it's only one way in and one way out. At the bottom of the hill, before you get way up to the top of the cemetery, there are old graves down there, Civil War graves, Revolutionary War graves. They're probably the oldest graves in the cemetery is there on the bottom. And we're looking around at things, but my mother's about, well, I'm sitting in a cemetery now, but my mother's probably maybe 50 feet away from me. And I'm looking around, and something for some reason grabs my attention and tells me to look way up on the top of the hill. When I look at the top of the hill, there's an old man standing up there, and he's staring at me. He's got his arms crossed, and he's looking down at me. Now, what's distinctive about this man is he didn't look ghostly at all. I'm not saying he was a ghost. He had on a very light blue shirt, a dress shirt like old people wear, sky blue. He had like sort of darkish gray pants on. And what's amazing is I could make out the fact that he was wearing glasses, and they were black framed. I could see them as plain as day. Even now, 40 some years later, I still remember that. He had a receding hairline, and he had snow white hair on both sides of his skull. And he stood there and he stared at me, and he started pacing back and forth, watching me, watching every move I made. And I wasn't doing anything but looking back at him, really. He terrified me because he just could not seem to take his eyes off me. And he didn't look like a ghost. Didn't look at all like a ghost. He wasn't transparent or anything. I could see him as plain as I see somebody walking down there right now. Now, it's really strange because I remember him with glasses on. I'm blind now. I can't see 5 feet in front of me, let alone if somebody's walking 20 feet away from me, if I can actually determine whether they have glasses on or not. But in that case, I must have had really good eyesight as a child because I remember those glasses. And he's continuously staring at me, and I finally get so disturbed about it that I go over to my mom and say, Mom, look, 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 look. And I'm grabbing her and I'm yanking her shirt. I'm up to her waist. I'm a little kid. And I said, look up on the top of the hill. I said, there's a man staring at us. I said, what's he doing up there? And she didn't pay me no mind at first. And for the next few minutes, I had to plead with her. And I finally demanded her attention and got it successfully by this point. And I said, look, and I pointed up there, and she looked up, and she looked back at me, and then I looked up. He was gone. He was completely gone, vanished, like that. Now, for those of you who know, because I'm not making this up, you can hear a car approaching the cemetery and the church. Doesn't matter where you're parked. You can hear a car way before you see it. And you can hear a car leave before it vanishes out of sight. And even when it vanishes out of sight, you can continue to hear that car. Because when you leave the church and you go up the hill, which goes all the way out to Green Garden Road, okay, you locals know what I'm talking about. I'm not making this up. That whole stretch there from the church to, I'd say, maybe a quarter mile down the road is all gravel. You can hear a bike coming, let alone a car. And you won't see it until you see it. That old man just disappeared. There was no car at the top of the hill. There was no bicycle at the top of the hill. Nothing. And he just vanished out of plain sight. He walked very slow. He was very old from what I could tell. There was no way that man could have disappeared that fast. There's just no way. My mother said, what are you talking about? Where's there a man at? And I said, Mom, I'm telling you there was a man up there. She could tell I was disturbed by this because we could no longer see him no more. I could no longer see him, and I was trying to relate to her what I saw. And even though it didn't seem like a big deal at the time, the fact that he disappeared so quickly was very unsettling for me as a child. I couldn't grasp it. And deep down I knew, I'm like, he just vanished. There's just something haunting about it. So we finally get in the car after a few moments of more exchange of dialogue. We get in the car and we proceed up the road. And I'm looking intently for a car. I can't find no car anywhere along that road, parked on the side or anything. When we get to the top of the hill, where you can go into the cemetery to drive all the way down, depending on where you want to visit graves at, there's no car there. There is no car there. That man did not drive a car into that cemetery at all. None. No way. And he didn't have a bike. He didn't have a motorcycle. I would have heard him leave. You know what I'm talking about. If you've been out there, you have visited that place, you can hear a motorized vehicle or even a bike coming way before you can see it. This man just up and vanished. I said, Mom, he was there. And she proceeded to ask me more questions. Well, what did he look like? What was he wearing? And I told her everything.